Hello, junior high people. I have one more video here for you in this series of lessons where we're creating an artwork that involves surrealism and one-point perspective. As you can see from the screen, I've developed part of this artwork with colored pencils, part of it with regular pencil, and I have left half of the artwork undone. While I wish I had finished the entire artwork, it is very time-consuming and I decided to stop at halfway. I thought that you guys would get the gist for the process with that much done. So even though I didn't finish the artwork, you need to. Please make sure to either shade or color the entire artwork space. For this artwork, I've decided to let you use the art materials that you have access to at home. So if you have only pencils, go ahead and just use pencils. If you have colored pencils, great. If you have art pens or markers, that'll work too. You can use these separately or in combination with each other. I want to be super clear with this. I am in no way asking you to cut your artwork in half like I have, where you do pencil on one side and colored pencil on the other side. That was a choice that I made in order to show you how different mediums look different and to show you some different approaches to using different mediums. And because I made that choice, I chose to divide the artwork in quarters. My original plan was to do pencil with opposite corners and colored pencil with opposite corners. But obviously I gave up on that because it was taking too long and it would have made the video really, really long. So I stopped it at just these two sections. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I got to this point, and I'm going to provide you with tips and techniques that will hopefully be helpful to you along the way.
The first thing I did was create a clean final copy by tracing my rough draft onto a new piece of paper. I also divided the paper up into 4 equal quadrants to be the boundaries for the pencil and colored pencil work that I was going to do. When working with colored pencil, it's ideal if you can erase the pencil lines as much as possible so that you can just barely see them. I think this is especially important for really, really light colors like yellow. Otherwise, the yellow will mix with the pencil and create a color that's not the bright yellow that you're looking for. Typically, I start off by coloring fairly lightly because colored pencils blend well when you do it in layers. So I started with a yellow kind of lightly, then I moved on to orange and blended that in a little bit. Then I went to a darker color for the broken pieces of earth or moon or whatever that is. And then I go back and do additional layers of yellow and orange. So it kind of goes back and forth between the different colors that I'm using and layering them in order to get them to blend. This is not the only way to use colored pencils, but it is a way that kind of creates this glossy blended look. I also typically start with the lighter colors, so that's why I did yellow and moved to orange and red and then the darker colors. Because it's much easier for darker colors to go on top of lighter colors than it is for lighter colors to go on top of darker colors. You can do it, but you can change it a lot more when you add darker colors on top of lighter colors. What I'm doing right now is using white as a way to blend the blue, the different blues that I have, into the paper a little bit more. And I'm pressing fairly hard when I do that. It's basically smashing the color into the texture of the paper and flattening out the paper to give it a little bit more of a smooth blended look and kind of moving those colors around each other a little bit more. A lot of times when I'm working on an artwork, I will jump around to different areas of the artwork before I finish any one area. Well, I actually did the opposite in this artwork. I pretty much went into a specific area, finished it, and then moved on. So there's not really a right or wrong. There's different preferences that people have. The benefit of moving around before finishing any one area, though, is that you get to see how the whole thing develops together, and you can make changes along the way when you see how one area relates to another area. If you go in and you finish one spot before you go to any of the other spots, and then later decide that you wanted to change something based on how it looks in combination with other areas, it's much harder to make those changes. But if you move around as you develop all the areas, then you can make adjustments and changes much more easily. With this tree that I'm coloring right now, I decided to make the leaves, that section of the tree, into sort of a brainy look. Remember, this is surrealism, right? So it doesn't have to make sense. I kind of looked at the shape of the plumage of the tree, and I decided, you know what, that kind of looks like a brain. I'm just going to go for it. So I make it into a little bit of a brain. I did a tiny bit of research to kind of look at what a brain actually looks like, but then I just used my own creative voice and license to make it how I wanted it to look. Part of the reason why I want to show you these videos, and this one in particular, is because I want you to kind of see how the drawing started off at the beginning of this video, and it was a pretty cool drawing. It was just a line drawing though, and I really want you to see how it can transform when you really dive deep into the details and you really embellish the different areas with a lot of texture, with a lot of blended colors, with a lot of different darks and lights, with a lot of different marks and lines. It really starts to bring certain things to life a lot more. And I really wanted to have you guys see that transformation because not all of us can kind of picture that happening. But after watching these videos, hopefully you can see how a pretty cool initial sketch can become even cooler when you push to develop it and render it with all these textures and colors and details. Okay, really quick before I move on to the other side of the artwork. I want to remind you of some of the things that I did. I used multiple colors in each one of the areas. I started off with light coloring pressure and gradually increased my pressure as I went. I did multiple layers, and I used white or a lighter color to blend areas in. Okay, now I'm moving on to the other side of the artwork, which is only going to have pencil being used, which some of you might think is going to be a little bit easier, but in some ways it's actually harder to do it well because you don't have color to rely on. You have to rely on different values to show the details that you want to show in your artwork. You can't change a color in order to make certain areas stand out. You have to change the value, you have to change the texture, you have to change the type of lines. So there's slightly different considerations that you need to make between using colored pencils and then just using regular pencils. So one of the things I'm thinking about when I shade this is which areas need to be darker, which areas need to be lighter. Does this area stand out well enough from this area over here? Should I outline this thing a little bit to make it stand out? What kind of marks can I add to create the different textures I'm looking for? Like, for instance, with that brick, how can I make this tree stand out from the brick? That was one of the struggles I had. And so my solution, which I don't know if it was the best solution or not, was to simply go darker around some of the edges of the tree. And that was my attempt to help the tree stand out. Before finishing the artwork, I would want to go around and I would want to make finishing touches throughout the entire artwork. I would want to be very picky and inspect and look and observe in all different areas of the artwork to see if there's something that I need to do, if there's something some detail that I need to add or change, or a little bit more shading here or there. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this video right now, and I just want to remind you of a couple of things. You're trying to create surrealism, and you're incorporating one-point perspective. Let's remember some of the methods for creating surrealism that we learned about and that you need to use in your artwork. First one is impossible scale. How do the sizes of objects in this artwork compare to the sizes of other things in the artwork? Are they natural or unnatural? A lot of them are unnatural. One example is the rubber ducky and how it compares to the sailboat or the bottle or the tree or the exploding planet. The sizes don't match up. The second one is the reversal of natural laws. The brain tree and the dripping people are just a couple of examples. The third method is double images. The two trees are just one example. Somebody could maybe make the argument that the dripping water above and the sea below count as double images as well. Number 4 is juxtaposition. Just remember that this is a fancy word for describing how we can place things together in order to create a new relationship between them. Juxtaposition might encourage you to ask thoughtful questions like, what is the connection between the dead tree and the brain tree? Or the dead tree and the dying planet or moon? What connection do these dripping people have with the situation? Are they dripping down on purpose? Or is this something that's happening to them? Who knows? And the fifth method of creating surrealism is personal symbolism. I, as the artist, have some intentions for what some of these things in this picture might mean. But guess what? It's personal, which means it's none of your business. Maybe you're not meant to know. You're just going to have to deal with it. All right, that's it. I am done. I look forward to not understanding what your artworks are about.